Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching Today I Found Out, and in the video today we're looking at when did teen girls stop commonly getting married. Today, in many cultures, it is considered immoral to have a young teenage girl get married to a much older man. However, there is a popular perception that in the not-too-distant past, this was a widespread practice. So, well, is there any truth to this? In the Western world, and generally speaking, before imperial Rome, girls were deemed sufficiently mature for marriage and sex when they first started menstruation, and boys, by the way, when they developed pubic hair. Marriage was relatively unregulated by the state then, and instead was seen as a private family matter, so it is presumed these boundaries were pretty flexible. The Roman emperors began to take matters in hand, beginning with Caesar Augustus's marriage laws in 18 BC and 9 AD. He ordered that no betrothal should be valid if the man did not marry within 2 years of such betrothal, and that the girl must in every case be at least 10 years old at her betrothal. Girls are held to have reached the marriageable age on the completion of 12 full years. By the end of the empire, the age of consent for girls had been well settled, as the official age for reaching puberty was set at 12. Now let's jump forward to medieval marriage. During this time, the Catholic Church had rules for just about everything, and one of its most authoritative texts was the Decretium Grantianae. This was written by the jurist Johannes Gratian in the 12th century. It set a minimum age for betrothal, not necessarily marriage, at 7 years for boys and for girls. The lawful age for a woman to consent to marriage, and as they called it, carnal intercourse, was set at 12, although certain unusual circumstances would render marriages at younger ages valid as well. Gratian was followed by others, including Hostiensis, who opined that a young woman's physical development, not her age, should determine whether she was ready for marriage. This all might lead you to believe that the popular idea that in the Western world it was common for girls of this era to get married is correct. However, although medieval marriages could legally occur at ages as young as 12, that doesn't seem to have been the norm. As stated in Kim Phillips's book, Medieval Maidens, Young Women and Gender in England, while marriages at very young ages could and sometimes did take place, particularly for girls of high social status, it would be a mistake to see marriage below or around the age of puberty as the norm even for young noble women. Emerging evidence is eroding the stereotype, with work on low and lower middle status women showing that a large proportion of the sample married between the ages of 18 and 22, and showing that urban girls in Yorkshire tended to marry in their early to mid-20s and rural girls in their late teens or early 20s. So, well, what about later? Well, a study performed by the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER, on marriage in North America and Western Europe mirrors the findings of the Yorkshire researchers. The NBER found that young women from the 17th through the 19th centuries were not all that young when they got married. For example, in Massachusetts, records dating from 1652 to 1800 demonstrate that the mean age of first marriage for ladies was between 19.5 and 22.5 years, and records for other colonies reflect similar ages. In fact, the average age of first marriage for all of the colonies was 19.8 before 1700, 21.2 during the early 18th century, and 22.7 during the late 18th century. This is consistent with data gathered in England, France, and Germany that puts the average mean age of first marriage for women at 25.1 from 1750 to 1799 and 25.7 from 1800 to 1849. Maintaining this trend, by the end of the 19th century, the median age when women were first getting married was between 22 and 24 years old, and this tendency continued into the 1940s. In fact, the lowest median age of first marriage since the early 1700s was had by the baby boomer generation, when the age dropped to 20.5 years in 1950. Perhaps unsurprisingly from this, the baby boomer generation also appears to have set the peak for high divorce rates, but more on that in a minute. So what about today? Well, as of 2010, the median age of first marriage for women was 26.1, 28.2 for men, although research demonstrates that marriage is most often delayed rather than foregone, and although they may wait a while, more than 90% of women will eventually marry. And so now let's jump back to divorce. While you'll often read that there is a 50% chance of any given marriage ending in divorce, this isn't quite accurate, or at least it doesn't tell the whole story. It only looks at the raw figures of marriages each year versus the number of divorces. This doesn't take into account repeat divorcees, which skew the totals in any given year. In fact, 67% of second marriages and 73% of third marriages end in divorce. The average divorce rate for the first marriage is only about 41% in the United States, and these divorce rate figures have been declining significantly in the last few decades, reaching their peak in the 1970s and early 1980s. It should also be noted that marriages where both parties have college degrees only end in divorce about 25% of the time. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, if you'd like to check out the book we mentioned in this episode, Medieval Maidens, Young Women and Gender in England, please do check out the link in the description below. More information, a lot more information about this subject in that book, so do check it out. Also, I'd like to take this moment to thank our patrons on Patreon. If you're interested in supporting us and helping us out in making these daily videos, please do consider heading over to patreon.com/TodayIFoundOut. And as always, thank you for watching.